Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into something we've been kicking around a bit.
Yeah, this whole idea of truth and like how we actually perceive it.
Exactly, because it shapes everything, right? Literally
Yeah.
everything we experience. So we're looking at, well, truth versus perception.
Mm-hmm. And we were watching this conversation the other day that really got us thinking. How much of what we call real is, well, is it just our version, filtered through our own heads?
Right. Is there some kind of, I don't know, ultimate truth with a capital T out there?
Yeah.
Or is it all just subjective?
That's the big question, isn't it?
So this conversation we saw, it really tried to peel back the layers,
Mm.
between what's actually happening out there and what ends up being our reality inside here.
And the first layer they talked about, it's pretty basic science stuff we learned ages ago, but
But it's still kind of a mind bender when you really, really stop and think about it.
totally. It's our physical limitations, our
Mm.
senses.
Yeah. How our senses work, or maybe how they don't give us the full picture.
Exactly. They're not giving us a direct feed of reality, are they? They're more like translators
Translators, yeah, I like that, taking in light, sound, touch, all that stuff.
and turning it into electrical signals, little impulses that the brain then has to figure out.
So the image you see, it's not like light just comes in and paints a perfect picture on the back of your eyeball.
Not at all. It's your brain constructing an image from those signals. It's
Yeah.
building what it thinks is out there.
Wow. So it's like we're all in our own little personal VR headset.
Kind of, yeah. The folks in this chat pointed out that, the average person, they never really experience anything outside their own skull.
Until,
Well,
yeah, until the very end. Which is a bit heavy, maybe, but it highlights the point.
it really does. Our entire interaction with the world is mediated, filtered, right from the start.
And that's just the first filter,
Okay.
the physical one.
Uh-huh.
Then you get to what they call the second veil,
Okay.
which is our psychological filtering. Ah, right. This is where the mind itself gets involved, even after the senses have done their translating bit.
Precisely. So that raw sensory data, or what's left of it, it then has to run the gauntlet of our ego.
The ego. Okay, so define that a bit. We're talking about
All our opinions, our judgments, beliefs, the traditions we grew up with, everything we've learned or decided is true or good or bad.
that whole collection of stuff we carry around.
Yeah. And it acts like another filter, doesn't it? They called it a hedge of thought process.
A hedge. Okay, like it blocks or redirects the information.
Sort of, or it colors it maybe. It can actually warp the information coming in before our conscious brain even gets a proper chance to look at it.
Whoa. So like those instant gut reactions.
Yeah, exactly. You see something or hear something, and instantly it's good, bad, I like it, I hate it.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Well, those judgments are part of this filtering. They happen so fast, they actually taint the initial sensory data.
So by the time our brain reconstructs everything into a coherent perception,
It's already several steps removed from whatever actually happened. It's been filtered physically and psychologically.
man, okay, that makes sense, but it's a lot. This idea of multiple layers, multiple removals. They had that guitar analogy, right? That really helped me grasp it.
Oh, yeah, the guitar thing was great. Let's walk through that. It really shows the steps.
Okay,
So imagine plucking a metal guitar string.
right.
That string vibrates. That's the source, a specific frequency in metal.
Got it.
But that vibration immediately transfers to the wood of the guitar body. Wood vibrates differently than metal.
Okay, so that's change number one. The medium changed.
Right. Then the vibration moves from the wood to the air inside the guitar's body. Air vibrates differently again.
Change number two. Still inside the guitar.
Exactly. So even before the sound leaves the instrument, it's already been transformed twice. 3 different materials, 3 different ways of vibrating.
Okay, but it doesn't stop there.
Not even close. Now the vibrating air inside pushes the air outside the guitar. That air is, a mix of gases. It's got temperature, humidity, another medium change
Right, so now the sound is traveling towards us.
towards your ear. And the first thing it hits, the skin of your outer ear, your pinna.
The skin. Seriously.
Yeah, it's got texture, maybe tiny hairs. It's not perfectly smooth. It changes the sound wave again, however slightly.
Wow. Okay, keep going.
Then the wave goes down the ear canal and hits the eardrum. Another membrane, maybe it's got a tiny bit of wax on it. Who knows? Another transformation.
And we still haven't heard anything consciously yet.
Nope. The eardrum vibrates, and it passes that vibration onto those 3 tiny little bones in the middle ear. The ossicles.
The hammer, anvil, and stirrup. Learn those in school.
Right. And each of those bones transmits the vibration slightly differently, amplifying certain things, maybe dampening others. Another few transformations right there.
Okay, this is getting ridiculous. How many of that now?
We're probably up to, what, 7 or 8 stages, and then the last little bone pushes on the kukli.
The snail shell thingy.
Yeah, and that's where the magic happens. The mechanical vibration finally gets converted into electrical impulses.
Back to electrical signals for the brain.
Exactly, which travel along the auditory nerve. And then finally, your brain interprets those signals as the sound of a guitar string.
12 stages. They counted 12 distinct transformations.
Yeah, being the 12th person in line, like that game of telephone or Chinese whispers.
It's amazing anything recognizable gets through it all. It really drives home how much potential there is for alteration, for loss of information between the thing itself and our experience of it.
Absolutely. So given all these veils, all these layers of removal, what about this idea of perceiving ultimate truth? Is that even possible?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, the conversation we were listening to kind of touched on this. Like, would we even want to perceive everything unfiltered?
Right. Can you imagine trying to listen to music or just live your life if you were consciously aware of every single one of those 12 stages, every molecular vibration, every neural firing?
You'd be completely overwhelmed. You'd be paralyzed by the sheer volume of data.
Yeah.
You'd miss the music itself.
Exactly. You'd miss the forest for the trees. Or the quantum foam, maybe.
Huh, yeah. So constant analysis isn't the answer,
Sure.
but is there another way? Like, can we be more present, more attuned to what's actually real without constantly dissecting it?
Well, this is where the discussion shifted a bit towards the idea of awareness itself.
Our capacity to be aware.
Yeah, and how for most of us it's maybe underdeveloped. We're not really taught to expand it or even pay much attention to it.
That's interesting. It's like our bodies change constantly, right? They grow, they age, they get sick, they heal. Eventually they decline. But that feeling of being aware, that core sense of I am here, that seems unchanging. Like, the awareness I have now feels like the same awareness I had when I was 5. The content is different, but the awareness itself.
That's a fascinating point. It feels constant, doesn't it? But the argument was, like any muscle, if you don't use it, if you don't exercise that awareness.
It can atrophy, it gets weaker, or maybe just stays limited.
Something like that. The idea was that most people operate with their awareness kind of confined, maybe just within the boundaries of their own thoughts and physical sensations inside the skull, so to speak.
Okay.
But that potentially we can expand it. We can learn to perceive reality more directly, more raw, as they put it.
Raw, meaning like less filtered, less interpreted by the ego and all that.
I think that's the idea. An awareness that's less clouded by our usual chatter and judgments, more direct perception.
They even mentioned those old paintings, depictions of saints or enlightened people with halos.
Yeah. Suggesting maybe that wasn't just symbolic art. Maybe it represented a kind of expanded field of awareness that was somehow perceptible. It's a wild thought.
It is. Okay, so if awareness is like a muscle, how do we work it out? What are the exercises?
Well, they gave some really simple, practical examples. Stuff anyone can do.
Like what?
Like just taking an object, say a pen, hold it in your hand, close your eyes, and just focus all your attention on the feeling of it. The texture, the weight, the temperature, the shape. Notice every tiny detail just through touch. No thinking about the pen, just feeling it.
Okay, so pure sensory focus.
Right. Or becoming really mindful of your own thoughts and feelings, not getting lost in them, but observing them, watching them arise, seeing how a thought might trigger a feeling, or vice versa. Just noticing the flow without judging it.
Like being a spectator in your own mind.
Sort of. Or even paying attention to really basic physical actions, like when you're walking, how does your foot actually hit the ground? Does your heel land first or your toe? Just bringing conscious attention to something usually automatic.
So it's about shifting focus.
Right.
Away from the usual background noise of routine thoughts.
Yeah, the mental loops we get stuck in.
And deliberately directing that focus onto sensory input or internal states or physical movements.
Yeah.
Being really present with whatever is happening right now, beyond just the story we tell ourselves about it.
Exactly. And where you are can make a difference, too.
How so? The environment.
Yeah. The conversation pointed out something pretty relatable, I think, that it often feels easier to get into that state of heightened awareness, that presence, when you're out in nature.
Oh, definitely. Away from the city bustle.
Right. Compared to being in a city with all the noise, the demands, the constant stimulation, it's harder to quiet the mind.
Makes total sense. Nature has a different rhythm, less jarring. They also talked about cities in another way, didn't they? Something about mob mentality.
Yeah, that was interesting. The idea that large groups of people, especially concentrated in a place like a city, can almost form a collective consciousness, an entity with its own vibe, its own momentum.
A city having its own consciousness. That sounds a bit out there.
Well, maybe not consciousness like an individual, but think about the shared feelings, stresses, intentions. And then they brought up that weird thing from quantum physics.
No, the observer effect.
Yeah. How just observing subatomic particles like photons in a laser beam experiment can actually change how they behave.
Right. Observation impacts reality at that tiny level.
So while it's a huge leap, the suggestion was, could the collective mindset, the overall observation of a city full of people with their specific stresses and focuses, actually influence the environment, affect the general field of consciousness there?
That's a heavy thought. The combined mental energy of millions potentially shaping the feel of a place.
It's definitely something to ponder. And it led to this distinction they made between the world of humans and, well, everything else.
The world of humans, meaning like society, jobs, politics, all the stuff we have to deal with day to day.
Exactly. The necessary structures we build to live together. And they weren't saying ignore it. You have to engage with it to survive, obviously.
Right. Pay the bills, get along with people.
But also the importance of being able to step back, to recognize that this world of humans is just one layer of reality, and maybe, compared to the whole universe, a pretty small and specific one.
Yeah. When you think about the scale of the cosmos, galaxies, nebulae, black holes, our whole human drama seems incredibly tiny.
Kind of puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Makes you wonder how much we're missing, how limited our current understanding of ourselves and reality might actually be.
It really does. So, okay, let's try and wrap this up a bit. We've talked about these filters, these veils.
Right. First, the physical limits of our senses, the translation process.
Then the psychological filter, the ego, beliefs, judgments coloring the data.
And maybe even these broader influences, like our environment or the collective consciousness around us.
All these layers removing us, step by step, from whatever raw reality or ultimate truth might be.
But the flip side, the encouraging part, is this idea that awareness itself can be cultivated, that we might have the capacity to see behind those veils a bit more.
To become more present, more directly aware.
Exactly. Which kind of leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to chew on.
Okay, what's that?
Just this. Consider how the world of humans, the reality you navigate every day, might just be one very specific, maybe even quite limited, slice of a much, much bigger, weirder, more complex reality.
What if our normal is just a tiny fraction of what's possible, or what's actually there?
Yeah. So maybe the invitation is to explore your own awareness, start noticing the filters, question your automatic perceptions, and maybe, just maybe, start gently exercising that awareness muscle. See what happens.
A lot to think about there. Thanks for diving deep with us today on this.
Always fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. We'll catch you all next time.